Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of the rocket game tutorial. So in this part I'm just going to quickly recap what we did in the last tutorial. So this is kind of the result of the last tutorial here in play mode. You can see WASD allow us to move around, rotate. Basically it's forward motion, turn, forward, turn. So that's about it. So I'm going to go ahead and show you real quick. The big thing that we did was, or the couple big things we did, were that we found models of rockets through the asset store. We were able to find a series of them. We picked a red rocket, although we have plenty of variations here and you can pick your own. I chose rocket 4. And then we created a player controller script. So this script right here, and I'll just quickly run through it. The player controller script has a velocity, which controls the position, and acceleration, which controls how fast the rocket moves in any given direction, and a maximum velocity to clamp it so it doesn't move beyond a certain speed. Then we get a reference to the camera at the beginning of our script. So on start, we get a reference to the main camera. And then in the update loop, we check to see whether the user is pressing the W, the A, or the D key. In the W key, we take the forward transform, which is the direction that our rocket is facing. We multiply it by any acceleration that's been applied, which happens right here. We've got the acceleration. It's set to 4 by default. You can change that in the editor. And then we multiply it by time, delta time. So that just makes sure that we are multiplying it by a reasonable time within the game. So the game will try and update as quickly as possible. This basically gives you the fraction it takes for a CPU cycle to hit. And we can get into that more later on. Ultimately, it adds all of this back to the velocity. And then down here, it takes the velocity, checks to see whether it's exceeding the max velocity that we've specified. And then it multiplies it by 0.98. So basically, it gives us, it reduces our velocity by 2% each time we move through a frame in the game. Then it adds the velocity to our current position, and finally it runs through these 4 lines here to check whether we have gone over the edges of the game, either in the y-axis, it's top or bottom, or the x-axis, left or right. And it uses the camera world to viewpoint method to figure out whether we've gone off of the camera view. So if we're not within the camera's viewport, then we can test that by checking whether we are at a position that's less than 0 or greater than 1. Equal to or greater than 1. And then we will adjust our position to be at the opposite side. So if we go below y0, then we get put at y1. Likewise, if we go above y1, we get put at y0, and same thing for x. And then we take that screen position, which we've just generated here, or here, and we pipe that back into, or we pass that back into the viewport to world point, which is the opposite of this method, also on the camera object, and we use that as our new transform position. So all of that results in what you saw here. And you can see some of these properties are accessible here, the max velocity. So this gives me the ability to clamp our speed. If we want to be able to go faster, I can up this. If we want to go slower, I can lower this. There you go. And then if you want to be able to accelerate faster, I can up this. So we're clearly hitting the max speed. So let's say this is 3. So we'll go ahead and hit that, and you can see we're speeding up quickly. Okay. So that's not what I really wanted to get into in this, but it is a good recap of what we just did. Okay, so what we're going to do in this tutorial is add a rocket boost effect to the end of the rocket. So every time you hit the W key, we're going to see particle effects fly out of the back of our rocket. So I've gone ahead and I've downloaded an effects pack. Now this is available on the asset store. I'll go ahead and show you where that is and how I found it. So Control 9 or Window General Asset Store is how you can get to the asset store. Now I did a basic search here, and I looked up effects, and then I filtered the effects. I wanted free, and of course you can feel free to pick whatever effect you like. And then I chose Unity Technology assets, so I wanted to see only assets from Unity Technology. So assets that Unity's made. I'll go ahead and pull this window out here so we can make it bigger. So now we can go down here. If you look through these, you will find Unity Technologies Unity Particle Pack 5. So this is the one I chose. There are more effects. I think if you look for particles and you do the same filtering where you filter by Unity as the publisher. So Unity Technology, I think there's a particle pack here. So this Unity particle pack is also really nice. The thing I would mention here is if you do download this one, make sure you do not overwrite your main scene. So this one has a file in it. It has both the scenes directory, which we already have, and it has a main.unity scene in it. So it will download and overwrite your main scene, causing you to lose this scene here. Not that we have a lot going on yet, but it's a pain to constantly remake your scene. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. This effects pack here has a particular particle effect under fire explosion effects and prefabs that I really like. It's called Flames Particle Effects, particle effect. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create an empty game object underneath my rocket 4, and I'm going to call this booster. So for my rocket booster, I'm going to drag this particle effect right below the rocket booster, and you can see it's way off here in the distance. If I pull over here, you can see that in the editor. So I'm going to go ahead and reset its position, make sure my booster's in 0. Okay, now I'm going to move my booster down to -4 because I found that's a decent place to have my booster. And then I'm going to go ahead and update the position and the properties for my particle effect. Now I've gone ahead and done some research here to determine what I think is best, or what I think looks best here. So I'm going to go ahead and just update. So duration, I'm going to set it to 1. My start life, I'm setting to 0.25 and 0.6. And my start speed is going to be 15. Start size is 3, and the max size is 6. And the last thing is simulation space. It's really important to put this into world space. Otherwise, it just follows your spaceship or your rocket as if it's attached to your rocket without any kind of physics effects. Then I'm going to come down to emissions. I will set that to 100. So now we've got a whole lot of emissions happening there. I'm going to change my radius to 1 and my radius thickness to 0.25. I'm going to change my arc to 0. Now you can see it's starting to look like a line more than anything else. Also going to change, I think I had velocity over time. I don't think that matters. Okay, so now I've got this whole thing kind of set up the way I want it. It doesn't look right still because it is rotated. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate my booster 90 degrees. And that's a lot closer to what I want, although it does appear to be too low. So we can go ahead and look there. You can see it's just coming, I don't know, a little bit off of the edge there. So I'm going to move it up. Right there. That looks better. So I think that's pretty good. You could do some velocity or some size changes here. I'm going to leave it alone for now. So let's go ahead and take a look at this in the editor real quick just to see how that looks. So I hit play. And you can see got this cool particle effect following my spaceship or rocket ship. Of course, it doesn't turn off. And the other kind of annoying thing about this right now is that when you hit the edge, what's happening is it moves your rocket over to the other side. The particle emitter pops over with your rocket as a child of the rocket. And so the particles that are left over here that haven't kind of finished end up looking like they're orphaned particles. You can see how they end abruptly. I'm going to leave that alone for now and just pretend like things are great. But so if you don't cross the edge, it looks pretty cool. I like it at least. So I'm going to go ahead and add functionality to turn this on and off when we are not moving and when we are moving. So we're going to do that by adding that to the player controller. So let's get in there. First thing we need to do is add a reference to our player controller. Now there are a couple ways we can do this. I'm going to add a serialized field, and I'm going to create a particle system reference, and I'll call this booster. So this is going to give me the ability to reference the particle system in my player controller. So I'll be able to make a strong connection here by dragging the booster flame effect right there into that slot, and now my player controller knows about that particle effect. So a couple things you will want to do off the bat is you want to create a new reference, and actually we can do this. Let's do this outside of the system. So we're going to create a new reference to an emission module, and we'll just call this booster emitter. So this essentially, the reason that we're doing this is because you cannot call a particle system and check its emission property and set it to enabled or disabled without using an interface. So this, we're setting this emission module to the interface of the booster emitter. And we'll go ahead and do that here. We'll get the reference booster emitter will equal booster.emission. So we're doing that on start, so we only have to do that once. And then when we come into the update loop, we are going to take the booster emitter, check it's enabled, or just set it's enabled to false right off the bat. So every time the game runs and it hits this update, it checks and sets the enabled property to false. It turns off of our particle emitter. However, if we come into the W key, we will want to turn it on. So we can say booster emitter dot enabled equals true. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Fairly simple code. All we're doing is turning off the booster emitter and then turning it back on if we're hitting the W key. Okay, this is compiled, and I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And you can see, there we go. So a few short lines of code, and we have a pretty cool booster effect happening here. It would be cool to hear some audio, so some rocket sounds every time you hit that W key, which we can add in a future tutorial. Also, looks like we are pretty sparse here with our environment. We're going to need some more, some obstacles, maybe some enemies, some pickup items to boost us up. So we'll get into that in future tutorials. All right, I hope you found this useful and interesting. Please leave comments and questions. And if you'd like to learn more, you can visit my website, danmacfinsky.com, sign up to my newsletter, or ping me directly from there. All right, thanks for watching.